We continue this month to talk about the new guiding documents that our church created. It has our core values, our vision, our mission statement, and it's an opportunity for us to really look at why we call ourselves church. And when I was planning this sermon, I came up with the title, The Cry for Justice. And if you don't know this, we do this. This was planned way back in May. And so you come up with a title. And you hope that it will capture the moment. And this past week, the horror that was visited upon communities in Baton Rouge and here in the Twin Cities area, and then in Dallas. I don't like to lay claim to the Holy Spirit's movement. That seems too egomaniacal to me. But the cry of justice seems to be apt for the week that we've just had. But also, as I was spending time with this parable, and I didn't mean to say this to the worship team this morning, but I said, who knows what parables mean? We just trust and try to figure it out. But boy, I tell you, if Jesus could be any more confusing, let's just let him tell you a parable. But as I was sitting with this parable of the widow and the unjust judge, an alternative title came to me. And if I was doing this all over again, I probably wouldn't even say Cry for Justice. I think that would be sort of a secondary title. I think the first title would be Don't Quit. Don't Shut Up. And I will tell you why that is important. Because in essence, that's what Jesus seemed to be saying in this parable. Again, I have no idea what Jesus was talking about. But I do know that Jesus used these parables to teach a lesson. And I know that when we read it, Jesus takes what the hearers would know as a part of their own lives and twists it around so they can get some lesson from it. And he wants to upend the conventional wisdom. So even when Jesus tells you the things that he's talking about, it can't quite be what you think he's talking about. And so he tells this very short story about a widow and a judge. But here's the thing, as soon as Jesus says widow, his hearers are going to have some kind of assumptions about what he's talking about. And the first thing you're going to think about is that this is a weak person. This is somebody who's demure, someone who doesn't have any agency or power. This is someone who needs men to protect her. Widows are the weakest people in our culture. So as soon as Jesus says widow, they said, oh, I know where you're going, Jesus. And then as soon as he says judge, they infuse the power of authority and government authority and legal authority into this one judge, this man, and he has all the power. You see, they're already conforming the lesson to what they already know. But then Jesus turns it around and says, the widow won't stop. She won't shut up. She keeps bugging the judge. This is no shrinking violet. This is no demure little lady who needs someone to come. No, she keeps coming back. As a matter of fact, the translation is probably not correct. The judge says, I need to do something so this woman will stop wearing me out. No, the Greek there says, I need to do something before this woman gives me a black eye. That's what the Greek says. And church folk want to domesticate it. So they said, oh, she will wear me out. No, she said, I'm going to hit you if you don't do justice. And that's the key. That this widow, this woman who's supposed to be powerless, this widow, the woman who should not be doing anything, she consistently and persistently says, Judge, I want you to make things right. Judge, I want you to avenge me. Judge, I want to be vindicated. And the judge, the one where Jesus says he didn't even fear God. He doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about justice. Yet he responds. This week, 2 African American men were shot by police. And this is a familiar news story. They happen all across the United States, but it's a familiar story. And that story is so familiar that we've domesticated it. As soon as we hear it, we say variously, oh, he must have done something to deserve it. We start forming the story or changing the story to conform to our reality. He deserved it. It was a thug. It was a criminal. He needed to be taken care of. And then on the other side, some say the police are a lawless band. They can't control themselves. Story already changing to conform to our reality or the reality we want. But here's what we need to do, and I'm gonna get to it. I don't want you to miss your shout, and I don't want you to miss where I'm going with this because we're gonna get it. But what I'm going with this is, when we try to change the story to conform to the reality that makes us comfortable, we are not thinking about what we are supposed to be thinking about, and that is justice. Oh, what do you mean, Pastor? How do we make things right? How do we make sure that those who are the weakest among us get their fair share and their fair treatment? As soon as we start changing the story to conform to our reality, all we want to do is to satisfy the status quo. We want to say, oh, we don't need to change anything. Oh, but we need to change everything. We need to change everything. If we didn't need to change everything, then why did Jesus tell the story? If nothing needed to be upended, why did Jesus tell the story? If justice was portioned out the way it should have been, then why would Jesus take the time to tell his followers about the need to pursue justice relentlessly and persistently? So this week, when those 2 African American men were killed under suspicious circumstances, under circumstances that didn't quite follow the first thing we should have been is, how do we make things right? When 5 police officers who were part of a very peaceful and conciliatory march get shot and other gets wounded, we don't need to go and start portion. We need to say, how do we make it right? That should be the question always. How? And then, here's where we come in, all God's children. This is where we come in. then we have to say, what is the message that we're putting out? We serve and follow and learn from a prophet, from the promised one, who says, I'm telling you a parable about a widow who was seeking justice. I'm telling you a parable about an empire, a judge, the person with all the privilege and power who basically gave in and made sure that justice was done. And here's the question for us, all God's children. If an uncaring respond to the cries of justice, what do you think God's going to do? A loving and faithful God. What do you think God is waiting for us to do? To go and pursue it so God can come quickly and bring justice. Oh, you missed your shout. You missed it. I can sit down, but you got to let me know you got it, because I can go. But you got to give me some feedback so I can get on back, go out of here. So if this judge who tells you, he's honest, I don't care about a widow, and I don't believe in her God. I'm not interested in what her life is like. I don't care. But here's what the judge realized. They call him unjust. I don't think the judge was unjust. I think the judge is like many of us in society today. My life is comfortable. What do I care about what's going on over there with those poor folks? I don't like to call him unjust. I don't think that was it. I think he was just comfortable. He was privileged. He had it all together. But here's the thing. One of the things that he realized, again, go back to the translation. I need to respond to this lady before she gives me a black eye. So what he realized that if injustice is the rule of the land, if injustice is the order of the day, nobody is safe. If we are comfortable with injustice, nobody is safe. There is no peace. If we want peace, we've got to get the justice. We've got to make sure that justice is done. We've got to make sure that all those who are weak, all those who are under the thumb of oppression, all of those who are under domination, they are going to have to get their justice. Because if there is no justice, there will be no peace. And I think that's what the judge realized. That if I don't respond, if I don't make sure that justice is done, who knows what will happen? And I think that's what we've been experiencing this week. In the absence of justice, people have no guide path. People have no sense of conciliation. People have no sense of how to bring peace. Without justice, people cry out for something and they realize they can't be heard. But Jesus said, God is going to see that justice is done. But we've got to go and do our part. We've got to go and pursue it. We've got to go and see that it's done. Our mission statement here is, our mission is to be a beacon of hope, reflecting God's unconditional love for all people. And if we are going to love all people, we're going to make sure that all people get what they need to live, to thrive, to be liberated. And then we go on and we said, we hold to values like inclusion, community, spiritual transformation, and social action. All God's children, if we live with those values, we will see that justice is done. That's the call. A few years back, I went to Guatemala. Guatemala, if you don't know the history of Guatemala, they had gone through over 30 years of civil war. And largely a military that terrorized the indigenous people. And I went on a trip with some Catholic sisters, and before we went on the trip, they warned us. The Civil War is over. But all of the authoritarians are still alive and around. And a couple of them are even running for president. So I just want you to know that we're going to be going into some places, and we just have to keep our heads straight and don't do anything. And of course, I was scared out of my mind. And the reason I was scared, because during that entire Civil War, all of the able-bodied men that could fight were killed. They were kidnapped. And no one could know where they were. Injustice ruled the land. Blood and violence was the order of the day. And yes, again, I don't mind saying I was scared to death. Every hotel and every place we stayed, I think I got about an hour of sleep every night. And then on our itinerary, they said we were going to see the widows of the disappeared men. We were going to go see the mothers who had lost sons to the violence. And already the story in my mind was I was going to see these demure little old ladies who were going to be scared of their own shadows. And I said, I'm looking forward to it, but I was ready to get into all my manly glory. I'm going to protect these women. Forgot how scared I was, by the way. I get into the room, and there are these 10 women there. And these are no shrinking violence. They're talking about justice. They're telling us how they are going to go to the United Nations and have some kind of commission to find out where the bodies of their husbands and their sons are located. And all those men who are running for president, they're going to make sure they get prison terms. Oh, they are telling us what they're going to do. And I'm sitting there thinking, what do you want us to do? Oh, we're just telling you. We're just getting the word out. We're going to seek justice. And we're not going to stop. Oh, there was no fear among them. Oh, and we even throughout the week, as we heard about shootings and people getting killed, and I began to think about those women who didn't even flinch. They were pursuing justice. And if those widows who confounded all of our senses of what a widow should be, who confounded all of our senses about a child, a mother who's lost her child, they confounded all of our reason and did what Jesus told his followers, that they should always pray and never give up. Those women never gave up. Never gave up. And 2 years ago, the United Nations brought charges against those strong men because of what those widows kept doing and kept going. They were just like the widow with that judge. They wore out the United Nations. They gave it a black eye to find justice. I'm telling you that now, because there are going to be those who tell us that in the aftermath of the shootings of those black men and the shootings of the police, that the only answer is some sort of civil war. They're going to tell us that they're going to get on one side or the other and say that there is no hope. They're going to tell us that on one side they're going to say, "Oh, you just are going after our police." Another side they're going to say, "You need to take care of the thugs." They're going to all the things they're going to say. They're going to say it, And all they're going to be doing is because they're going to want the status quo to remain. They're going to want injustice to remain the order of the day. But here I'm telling you, we are called to see that justice is done. See that justice is done. Don't quit. Don't shut up. When we see it, say something. When we see the injustice, call for justice. I don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. It's the young black man, unarmed black man, or it is our trans siblings who are being attacked about their back. No matter if it's the Muslim, we should stand and say, we want to see justice done. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because where there is injustice, there is a distortion of the community. What happened last week, all of that violence is a distortion of who we are called to be. It is a distortion of God's good creation. It is a distortion of peace in the land. Let us see that justice is done.